Stitch People. Welcome to the Stitch People podcast. I'm Lizzie Bean, your host and the founder of Stitch People, where our goal with cross-stitching is to inspire your personal creativity. And our goal with this podcast is to help you make some new friends while you're at it. Today's guest is Courtney Watabe, and I'm really thrilled to share this conversation with you all. I think you'll have a lot of fun because I had a lot of fun. Courtney's actually an old friend of mine. She was BFFs with my older sister as I was growing up in high school. I've always looked up to Courtney, and we reconnected, I want to say around 2013, 2015 with Stitch People. She came to the Stitch People gathering when we had our first in-person gathering, February 2020, before we had to stop doing those because of COVID. And it was so good to see her there. And it's been really, really great to stay connected over cross-stitch and stay in each other's orbit. It was so fun to catch up, and she's got so many great stories. I think you're going to really love this episode. Just a pro tip on this one, maybe pull out your tissue box because there are some tearjerker stories. Courtney's got some great insights and has had some beautiful experiences with her cross-stitch portraits. So gear up, grab your tissues, and enjoy this conversation with the beautiful Courtney Watabe. Welcome to the Stitch People podcast. Courtney, I'm so excited to have you here for reasons that will be made clear very soon. But thank you so much for being here.
It's so wonderful to be here. I'm excited.
Guys, I just have to tell you, listen, I feel a little starstruck talking to Courtney, and this is the truth. I'm not just blowing smoke because Courtney played Adelaide in a production of Guys and Dolls at Timpview High School in 2004? 2003. I would have been a freshman. I think you were a senior. And my sister was in the show with you. And you guys are really good friends. You and my older sister. And ever since, I think it was you and, I think Jared had already graduated. There was just a bunch, Alex Ungerman and like just all the seniors that I looked up to as a freshman. All my sister's cool friends. And Courtney was the star. And I've just adored you ever since and always looked up to you. So This is pretty cool for me.
Well, stop it. I feel the same way about you in the cross-stitch world. I can't even believe I'm face-to-face with you.
Oh, gosh. Hardly. You've known me since I was a pimple. Whatever. So you live in Hawaii now.
Yeah.
That's new. I think that's a really fun place to start. Tell us how the heck you got yourself to Hawaii.
Well, my husband is full Japanese, but his mom grew up in Hawaii. And
Awesome.
So we kind of always wanted to make it back here. We thought that it would be like a when our kids were grown type thing.
Yeah.
But recently...
Did he grow up there?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
But he grew up coming here in the summers and hanging out with family. But his family wasn't like beach people. They just like were here. He didn't get to really experience Hawaii when he grew up here. I mean, when he came in the summers. So anyway,
amazing.
Basically what happened is a couple little life-altering things. My husband's brother passed away from a really horrible accident. And he had, young kids and stuff. And that was really jarring for our family. And then my dad had a cancer diagnosis last year. And, that one, all my siblings came last January. So like a year ago, we all came here to Hawaii with my siblings and my parents. And my dad had esophageal cancer. And so they had to remove the bottom half of his esophagus and the top half of his stomach and sew them together. I mean, that's the crude definition of it. But so his head can't go beneath his stomach at this point, or else he just loses everything in his stomach. And so he's 30 years older than me. So he's 68 years old, and he's barely able to, he can't swim in the water. He can't, do the boogie boarding and all the fun stuff that we would normally do together. And it kind of just shook my husband and I, because it was the year my dad still hadn't retired until last summer. And so we just thought, you know what, we need to just live our dreams now and do it while we're young and we know we can. And because there's no guarantee, there's no guarantee of tomorrow or anything. So we literally packed up 10 suitcases, and because for each member of the family, 2 for each member of the family, and flew here with nothing but that and just started an adventure.
Wow. And okay. Wow. So you still have extended family there, it sounds like.
So
your husband's side.
My husband has an uncle, and I actually have an uncle that had moved here.
Cool.
So
Okay. So you've got some family support and you're just living the dream. As heavy as all of that is, and it is. I mean, we just jumped right in. But I do feel like, I mean, that's life. Like things like that happen to everybody, and it is sometimes it's those things that can help you choose better things. Like I really respect that you guys are just going for it, because life is short.
Yeah.
I feel like the last few years especially have just blinked by, just because everybody's been like living in this unknown vortex of like, what's next? Can we go outside? What do we do? And it's, I don't want to say like frightening. I don't know what the word is, but colloquially, it just kind of freaks me out that like it was 2019, just like this. Where did the last 5 years go? And there's no guarantees. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, and time is just elusive. So you might live the dreams.
Life is precious,
now.
And we got to do the bucket list items like now, instead of waiting until you know that you only have a few years left, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard this really cool concept once that reminds me of. I can't remember who the author was. I'll see if I can find it. But I read this ebook he wrote, and it was about time travel, which he makes very concrete. Rather than like you get in a machine and you set the DeLorean to like 100 years ago, he talks about actually like bucket lists. And he's like, listen, if you and your partner have a 20-year big Hawaii vacation on your bucket list for your 20-year anniversary, he's like, if you do it at your 10-year anniversary, you just time traveled 10 years.
Totally.
You just shaved 10 years from your life, and you just gained 10 more years of experience. So, if you can do in 5 years what other people would wait 10, 20, 30 years, wait for these big goalposts, then but what are you doing by the time you hit 10, 20, 30 years? Because you've already done the things that other people are waiting for. And so he calls it time travel. And I actually really like that, where you can kind of like accordion like you said, not waiting till you retire, because like your dad, like you never know. Yeah. So just do it now.
Yeah.
And see what happens. Oh, wow. Wow. What an adventure. So how long have you been there?
Right now we're at like 9 months, 8 months. Yeah. Last May is when we got here.
Awesome.
So
coming up on it.
Yeah, we're loving it. It's definitely expensive. I got to stitch a lot to pay rent.
Go.
And it's great. My husband works at a hospital, and luckily healthcare is a field that's easy to find a job in. Yeah. And so he was able to transfer pretty quickly. And my kids are doing okay. My oldest, we just had to pull him out of school to homeschool. It's just the schools here aren't, at least for him, wasn't doing what he needed. And so we just pulled him out and homeschooling my 8-year-old. And then my 7-year-old is doing fine. She wanted to stay in school. So, good. And then my 4 and my 2-year-old are just home with me. So.
Wow. Oh, how fun. And where in Hawaii are you? What island are you?
We're on Oahu. We live kind of like across the harbor from Pearl Harbor. It's a place called Eba Beach.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right there. I mean, anywhere you go in Hawaii, you're right there to do all the fun things, but you're kind of in the heart of it, especially you're well positioned for if people come and visit.
Yes.
Because they're going to want to come to see Pearl Harbor or whatever. And hey, you're just down the road.
Yeah, we're like a half an hour from the airport. So it's, unfortunately you have to go around like the whole harbor to get to us. So we can see, like we could swim there probably faster than we can drive there to the airport. In fact, like there used to be a ferry there that took like 10 minutes, and now we have to drive a half an hour, but it's fine. Oh, well. And we actually have had guests like from before Christmas through like 2 days ago. So it's been pretty crazy. It's like 2 full months of guests.
But you get to see the people you love. So that's cool. Yeah. So your husband's family's from Hawaii, but he didn't grow up there. Tell me about where you grew up, where he grew up, and how you guys met.
Okay. Well,
I'm finding the Meetcute stories to be very, very fun. We've had a few really good ones, just full on destiny stories. So,
well, he grew up in Japan, actually, for the most part. Oh, cool. He was kind of all over for a while, but then in junior high, he moved to Japan and was there for junior high and high school.
Awesome.
And I grew up in Texas and Minnesota for a little bit, and then Utah for like junior high, high school for me as well. And actually, we both married other people earlier in our 20s, and we each were married for about 5 years. And we both were going through divorces around the same time and like finished up our divorces.
Jeez. And just like parallel timelines.
Yeah, yeah. And basically, we were introduced by a mutual friend called internet dating.
But hey, a lot of stories start like that these days. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I felt like such an alien trying to date after a divorce. I had been loyal to this guy for 8 years of my life. I hadn't even looked at another man, and I felt like I was in a foreign country. So a friend of mine said, you know what, get online. It's way easier to flirt when you don't have to see them. Yeah. You can text.
Lower stakes.
Yeah, lower stakes. And she's like, you'll get your feet wet and be able to kind of flirt that way. Anyway, it turned out.
That's good advice.
Yeah. And so it turns out he ended up, this is embarrassing, but he was my first date after my divorce. And I was like, immediately liked him. He immediately liked me, but we were both recently divorced, and so we just kind of said to each other, like, yeah, this is great, but like we're taking this super slow.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
So we just became
Same
friends,
page.
And we were those friends though that like when we'd go on other dates with other people, we'd like sneak pictures of the date and be like, he catfished me. Like he looks nothing like his photo. And we'd kind of like text each other, while we're on dates with other people. And like 3 or 4 months go by and we're like, we'd be best friends. We'd hang out all the time, but we weren't like together. And we were dating other people a ton. And one night I was on a date and I got dropped off, and he was just like coming home from work or something. And he decided to just drive by my house and see if I was home. And he watched me like get out of the car. He like drives into my neighborhood and watches me get out of the car with this other guy and walk to the front porch. And so he just like was so mortified. He did not want me to see him like go past. So he just like pulled over. It was dark. So he pulls over and he just like turned his lights off and sat there like 3 houses down and watched. He's like, I'm such a creeper, but he didn't want me to see him. He was like, he was so embarrassed. Right. So anyway, he watched me like dodge this kiss on the front porch. I like kissed the guy on the cheek and kind of like patted his back and went inside, and the guy left. And he told me, his name's Jason, my husband is Jason. He told me that my front door opened, I walked inside, the door closed, and literally 2 seconds after the door closed, his phone was ringing on his seat, and it was me next to him. And I was calling him like the second I walked in from my date, and he was like, what are we doing? Why are we pretending that we don't like each other? So he like,
that's
I know. So he's like, so embarrassing thing, on the phone. He's like, I'm here in front of your house and I just watched you. I'm really sorry. I wasn't trying to be creepy, and so from then on we've been, together. So yeah.
That's adorable. That's really sweet. And once again, fate, like your first guy, the universe was like, here you go, Courtney.
I know.
We found him.
Here he is, hand delivered.
Oh,
super.
How great. And how long have you guys been together?
We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in December.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So great. So tell us, the listeners, how you got into cross stitching. Have you always been crafty? I mean, like I said, you're like the cool senior lead musical gal. So I know that you're very creative, excellent singer, great actress, great dancer.
You're so sweet.
Have you always had those creative bones? Is that something in your family? Is your family very artful? Just tell us the whole thing.
So yeah, my family is artistic. My parents met in theater program in college.
Awesome.
And my dad, taught until last year theater at the university level. So
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I get my creativity, I believe, from my parents, but nobody is I never really realized that any of my backline has been crafty.
Yeah.
I learned to cross stitch when I was probably 12 years old or 10 years old. I don't even know, when I was a little girl, at like a church activity or something like that. Like, I remember loving it, and I remember like wanting to do it a lot. And I would like, my mom, in fact, the other day, she sent me a picture. Actually, she didn't send me the picture, but she told me that she like had found a little thing of me, a thing that I had cross stitched. It was like, said, "I love you." It was just like a silly little thing that I had made when I was, 10 or 12 or something. Anyway, so I got the bug then. And then several years later, when I was in my early 20s, I was married, and I was in an emotionally abusive relationship that I didn't realize I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. And I got married pretty young the first time. I was 21. Yeah. It was a few days before I turned 21, and when I got married. And so I didn't realize I wasn't in a healthy relationship, and I needed, anyway, the person that I was with had a job. He was a performer as well. We were both kind of pursuing that, and he would get jobs all over the country, and I would stay back I lived in New York City, and I would stay back in New York City and work, or I would travel with him. And it got to a point where our relationship was so rocky that I started wanting to travel with him, because I was thinking that it was the distance, and that was what was hard for our relationship. So I started wanting to go with him anyway. And so when I was with him on his various shows, I couldn't get a job because it was like 6 weeks here and 6 weeks there. It's like, and this is before the time of...
Is that like touring shows? Is that...
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like a different regional theaters.
So they'll go do a stint in Salt Lake for 6 weeks, and then they'll go to Seattle for 6 weeks at the big theater or something like that.
He never was that... He wasn't in a touring show at the time. It was just different regional theaters here and there.
Sure.
We would be in different Portland shows. Or we'd be in St. Louis, or we'd be in Nashville or something like that. And it would just be like 6 to 8 weeks here and there. And so, and I'd go,
That's hard.
or Salt Lake City. And and at first I was staying back, like I said, in New York City, and I was working as a nanny, and I was making pretty good money. I was living in New York. I was still really poor, but, but anyway. And so I started traveling with him, and I needed something to fill my days. And I remembered how much I used to love cross stitching. And so I had gone and found like a counted cross stitch pack.
Yeah.
And I worked on one for probably 200 hours. I mean, those things take forever.
They're deceptive, because it's like, oh, it's a little 5x7, but it's like 700 colors, and you have to cross stitch the whole thing and then half stitch all the details on top of it and outline it.
Yes, totally.
Oh, yeah, they're intense.
Yeah. So anyway, I started doing a couple of those. I gave one to a friend when she had a baby, and then I made one for my sister-in-law when she had a baby. And this one was like a big one. It was like a 12 by 10 or something, like an announcement.
Whoa.
But the catalyst for me switching my method was that gift I gave. It took me forever, and it was I gave it to my sister-in-law when she had her 4th baby, and it was like an announcement. It said like her name and her birth weight and all this. And like looking back, I was really sad that she didn't like totally love it, because I had put so many hours into it. But now I can look back and be like, well, it's because it was outdated. Like it, you know what I mean? Like
sure, like not her style.
Yeah, exactly. Like you should see her house. She's like boho chic, beautiful. And this is like this like 1960s, and it was adorable to me. I spent hours on it, but anyway, I found it a couple months later. I like went and visited, and I found it in the closet of her baby's room, like against the wall, not even facing out. And I was like, why did I spend so much time on that? And I was kind of beating myself up about like this talent I'm using or that I have that I'm not using to like actually make things that beautify the world. I mean, it was cute, but it wasn't, you know.
Yeah, or even just like that have your voice in it, like have your creativity. Like it's one thing to get a pattern and execute it well, and that takes a lot of skill. You know, just like a musician playing a piece that someone else wrote. Like it takes musicianship, it takes artistry to create that pattern well, but it also is someone else's vision that you're executing.
Totally. And I didn't really realize that I could create my own patterns or create my own voice and really make things my own. So I started to, anyway, I got out of that marriage and moved into the next, and I was pregnant with my first baby, and I wanted to make some stuff for his nursery. And so I was in another situation where I couldn't work because my then husband was in PA, or my now husband, all the husbands. Anyway,
your now husband at that time
was in PA school, and he was on rotations. And so this time again, we were traveling every 6 months. And by this time I had gotten my teaching certificate. I got my teaching degree. I'd been divorced. I'd gone back to school and gotten my teaching degree. And so I had like done my student teaching, and I was subbing, but then we started moving every 6 weeks, doing a different rotation. And on those rotations, I pulled out my cross stitching again because I was pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I'm making an alphabet for my son, but I'm not going to do someone else's pattern. I'm doing this myself. And I made a hoop for every letter of the alphabet with a different animal that went with the letter. So like I did an alligator and did a lowercase and an uppercase A on the A, for the A. And then I did the butterfly.
So you did 26.
Yeah.
How big were they?
They're all different sizes. They go from like 4-inch hoops to like 18-inch hoops. Like I have,
oh my goodness.
I need to photograph them. They're on the mainland right now, so I don't even have them in Hawaii. But they're beautiful. They're so beautiful.
What a feat. That's just even the number alone.
I know, but get this, Lizzie, the reason I haven't photographed them is because this is also before the time of like, I didn't know anything. And this, what I did, I wasn't creating my own patterns. I was Googling like an alligator because I wanted to do an alligator. And I, cross-stitch alligator.
Like pair it with the
cross-stitch alligator would pop up, and I'd find the one I liked, and I would literally take a picture of it, a screenshot of it, and it would be blurry, and I would literally just like hand look at the picture and hand do it, and basically copy a bunch of people's patterns, which is embarrassing, but it was before I knew, and it was only for me. It wasn't, I wasn't selling it.
But I was going to say, it's for yourself, and it's a great way to at least start with that kind of creative flow of getting in the, figuring out the style you like, looking at what's available. And there are, to be honest, some of what you found probably there's tons of free patterns.
Yeah.
So it's likely, and the alphabets too. Like I actually have it right here. How funny. I've got these, friend of mine, my mom's friend, sent me like a bunch of her old cross-stitch stuff.
Cute.
And I was looking through this alphabet one, and like, there's only so many ways you can do a letter
I
A.
know. Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I get where you're coming from, but what a great place to start. And I also think it's a fine line, because I'm definitely in that. I always advocate for like, don't let not having the right thing stop you, So if you had this idea and you're motivated and you're having a hard time finding a pattern you like, or tracking down where to buy it or who to give credit to, but you're just going to hang it on your own wall, make your best judgment. You know what I mean? And get making. It's the creativity. That's the point. It's the getting going. That's the point. So that's cool that you did 26. You just jumped right in.
And then Lizzie, and then I found you. I reconnected with you. I don't remember. We had reconnected several times over the years.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
But I think I don't know if I found you online or something, but then I became your biggest fan when I saw your stitch book. This was before you had created the book.
Oh, really? So that would have been like 2013.
Yeah.
Because the book came out in 2014.
Yeah. So this was like it was probably 2012 when I did that show with your big sister and when we did Crazy for You together. And
That's right.
Yeah. And then
that might have been even earlier.
Well, that was 2012.
You did Little Women with her, huh?
I did Little Women with her
that was like 2008.
Yeah, way before.
Okay.
Yeah. But in 2012, I reconnected with Emily doing Crazy for You, and she told me that you were creating Stitch People. I don't think they definitely weren't called Stitch People, but she showed me some of your work and I think you and I talked. You must have come to a rehearsal or been in the costume shop or something. I don't know how we connected, but you showed me some stuff you were working on, and I was like, I like to cross stitch. And I tried for a little while to like put a little bird in your ear that I would make some things for you if you ever needed like an extra. But you were so overwhelmed with what I think you were getting your book going, and you were like, you couldn't, and so
well, and it's hard to anybody who's tried to delegate. There's always that thing of like, either I could take the time to like work somebody else into this flow and teach you and like work together, or I could use that exact same time to just do the thing.
It. Yeah, exactly.
And those early days, I had such a flow of portraits coming in, but it wasn't quite enough to pass off.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It was like, it's that weird, you got to reach that tipping point of like way too much.
Well, and now that
I
make my own portraits and sell them, I'm like, there's no way. When somebody puts an order in with me, I feel that order in my heart, and I'm like, putting my heart
and they've ordered it from you.
Yes,
too.
Exactly. They've ordered it from me, and
because they like something about what you do,
and like they want, like they have them. There's other people they could order this from, but so I totally get. Looking back, I could be like, well, of course she wasn't going to be like, just take my orders. I just didn't understand it at that.
But you saw the potential,
and I loved it, and I bought your book pretty recently, pretty soon after it came out, and then I had 2 young kids at home, and I never pulled it out for like 2 full years.
Man, I think a lot of people will relate to that. Yeah. I've done that with my fair share of things too.
So in 2000,
and we get that a lot too with the Stitch People book. It's like you get this idea, and then it's like that's just the first step, because then you have to like decide what you're going to do and design it and get your materials, and it's like it just stays on a shelf for a while.
Designing my own was really overwhelming. I don't like. I was like so scared and so nervous at first. I'm like, oh. And so I put it off for 2 years. In 2014, when your book came out, is when I had my first baby. And then 2015, I had my second baby. And then by 2016, I was feeling okay. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And my husband and I we were in a place where I felt like I could like start to stitch a little. Mostly because he was traveling for work, so he would be with us from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then he'd have to take the train back and work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I was alone at nights for 4 nights a week, and I'm like, I gotta fill this time. Like I don't like getting into shows, and like I don't like TV very much. I like to be listening to a book or a podcast, and back then it was books, but and it still is. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull out this stitching stuff, and I pulled it out, and I made, this is a fun story right here. So it was Christmas time, and I'm like, I joined this. Okay. Do you remember, sometimes they still do this, but do you remember like a while back when Instagram, they would like every Christmas, they'd be like, a women's gift exchange, join this and you'll get paired with someone, and you do a little gift exchange with someone you don't know. They still do it. People still do it, but this was back when it was pretty new. And so I just joined it, and it like gave me, Otto gave me some girl's name, and it gave me their Instagram handle, and it said like a $10 gift. And it needed to be personalized. I think part of the parameters were that you like look at their profile and see something that they'd really like. Anyway, I looked at her profile, and this woman just completely mesmerized me. Like she was so amazing. She had a son that she had adopted, and I had like gone back and totally stalked her and noticed that like she had lost 2 baby girls at birth. they both had some condition where she carried them full term, and then like they never took a breath, both two babies. And it was so heartbreaking. And the way that she moved on from that, but still remembered them, and like she just like, they were so near to her, and it touched me. Like I just like, I would just like sob thinking about her. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a portrait for her with her babies in it. And so I did the math. I went back and like figured out how old her babies would be. And when I stitch, even to this day, when I stitch a deceased member of the family, I like to stitch them in the age that they would be. And so I stitched them as like 4 and 5-year-old little girls, and with their 3-year-old little adopted brother. And I did the mom and dad and the little boy in the middle. And then I did the 2 little girls on the outside holding the mom and dad's hands, just in little like white and gold dresses. And I always put my like angels in bare feet. So I don't do halos or wings. I just like to have it be simple. Like they're just there, but they're a little understated. And anyway, and so I sent it to her with a little note just telling her, like, I know your girls are with you always. And I lost a sibling when I was a little girl. And so I kind of wrote that experience and just said, like, I have felt that sibling with me in several instances of my life. And I know she said on her Instagram how much she feels the influence of her little ones. And so I just wrote her that her story has touched me in this. And anyway, she loved it. She like posted about it, which I didn't think she would do, but she like was so grateful. And it kind of just spurred this in me. Like, I can uplift people with this. With this talent. So I then made one for my
100%.
Oh, it's just amazing. So I made one for my parents, who, like I said, I lost a sibling when I was little. And I made one for them with them in the middle. And then I have 7 siblings. So all 8 of us beside my parents. And I put my younger brother, he died when he was 27 days old. And so, but I made him as like a 25-year-old man, because that's how old he would be. And I really wanted my mom to like see it. So it's funny, like the whole process that I did, I like averaged all my brother's heights and made him like the exact that height, and kind of, he had dark hair when he was a baby. And so I put that color hair, and I just kind of made him look sort of like my brothers. And I put him in a silver suit with bare feet, and my mom adored it. And so it kind of just got me on this little path to creating some portraits.
I love that. Well, and that's something that I love that you figured that out like first thing, because it eventually dawns on a lot of people how the stitched portrait of a family can accommodate so many things, from deceased people to deceased pets to mixed families that maybe distance or even just strain or something kind of prevents everybody from getting in a photo together, but you can stitch everybody together. And, it's like you can include all the important things and more often, if you choose to do text or add any sort of accessories or backgrounds or, whatever, people go crazy with them. But, it provides an opportunity that you can't always get with just like a photo or getting together or something. It's pretty special.
Yeah, exactly. And
that way. I love those stories. So it's so touching.
Then I put it away for a couple years, because life, and then I believe it was 2018. I got a text message from someone I didn't know. Sorry, you can hear the chicken outside. In Hawaii, there are wild chickens and roosters just roaming. So like we literally get awakened at 5 a.m. by roosters. So I'm really sorry. But anyway, I got a text message from someone I didn't know, and they said, "Hi, I got your number from your mom. I was at your house for a party, and I saw the stitch that you made on the wall with your little brother that had passed away. And you'll know this person. I don't know if anyway, we'll so anyway,
we'll chat after the fact.
So she said I have a friend who recently lost a son. Unfortunately he drowned. And it was just it was so sad. And she said, but she was pregnant with a baby girl when she lost her son. And she's always talked about how she'll never have a picture with all her babies in it. And it just broke her heart. And so she's like, I'd really like to commission a piece from you. And I was like, I haven't stitched in like 2 years. Like, what? Yeah, what do I charge you? Like, I haven't. And so I said, like, I'll just do it. You don't have to charge me. Because it was like my brother's friend. You know, and I was like, I'll just do it. She's like, no, because then if the gift is from you, I want the gift to be from me to my friend. So can you please charge me? Like, and I was like, okay, like, this is weird. Okay, I'm going to charge someone for something, and I'm not even that great at it. But I did. I made this little piece with all their kids and then their little boy and I put him in his favorite outfit, but I put little silver accents. I like to just do a little bit of something, and then obviously
a little heaven.
Yeah.
Flair.
I either do silver or gold, whichever like goes with the aesthetic of the piece.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's, and then really I of course did them barefoot, which I always do. And I had this is funny, Lizzie. You'll appreciate this, but as I was stitching him, I had them all just standing, you know, like separate. I might cry when I say this, but I had this distinct impression, like that little boy was there, and he said to me, like in his own way, he said, like, please let me hold my mommy's hand.
Oh, okay. Forget it.
I know. And I just,
it's just allergies, everybody. It's fine.
And I just like in the moment, like stitched him up holding his mom's hand and was like, whoa, you know, I mean, you spend hours staring at this family, staring at pictures of them, and you just grow this love for them. And it's really like, you know, you're thinking about them, you're thinking about their story, you're thinking about their lives. And anyway, you know, a couple, like a year or two down the road, I actually was able to meet in person this mom. And, you know, I was able to tell her that story, and she was so touched. And she said that when she saw them holding hands, she's like her and her son holding hands in the stitch, she loved it so much. And then when I told her the story, she was crying and was just so appreciative. I just think it's just so beautiful that we can put these portraits together of families that have been broken or, you know, people that have passed, and just be able to really like, I don't know, put them back together and let them see what their family is with everybody included. Yeah. She loved that. You know, she dealt with a lot of guilt. I mean, her son drowned, and it's not her fault, but there's
horrible accident.
Yeah, exactly. You're not.
But every parent's going to go, what should I have done differently?
Exactly.
You know?
Every parent, especially every mother. And so she just said that, like, knowing that he felt that I want to be holding my mommy's hand, it alleviated some of that guilt that she had felt about that. And she just a tender little moment.
That's so sweet. Well, and I think too, like, to not grace over the fact that one of the reasons I think it's so meaningful is, like, you thought about it. Like, it's this whole, like, eternity symbol of meaning behind a handmade gift like that, where, you know, you've got a person who has a skill or talent, sure, and to purchase a handmade good generally is very cool. Wow, somebody made this. But kind of just what you said in passing is you spend so much time looking at these photos and thinking about these people and making these decisions. And I'm sure, like, for you, knowing the story, that here you are looking at pictures of this little boy, knowing he had passed, and you're probably looking at all these very happy family photos of, you know, that they had taken together to get his likeness just right. So you're sort of spending time with them, and you're putting in your thoughtfulness. It's like, it's that much more special to receive something not only handmade, not only personalized, but that takes so much thoughtfulness on the maker's part, and not in a way that's like, go us, we're so special, you know, the hand makers. I mean, but kind of. No, but just in the just in a very human kind of way, that, like, it is special. It creates a bond, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It's not just like, I am a wood carver and I made you this wooden thing. It's like, no, I really spent time with you in a sense, and I got to know you and your family, and now we share something. And even if you aren't friends with that person, you never see them again, it's just a customer or something, like, that's still, I don't know, I think that's still something that
Totally.
exists.
I think
still.
it's
that, like positive juju into the world. Yes. Ripples of goodness.
All my favorite orders have been ones of where it's meaningful like that in a beyond just like making a gift that's personal. It's like, and this is what I always say, like when people order from me and, when I send out my gifts, like I say like these, well, and even before this, these gifts, when these are given to people, it's one of the most thoughtful things you can possibly do because it takes a lot of forethought. Because like for me, I'm like 12 to 15 weeks out. Like you have to order from me 15 weeks before you get your thing, right? A lot of that is because I have a lot of orders, but most of it is because I have 4 kids, so I have to like manage my time. I can't spend all day stitching every day, but and so people have to think 4 months in advance before the time they want to give it as a gift. And then they have to collect all these photos and send them to me. And then they have to tell me, hey, so-and-so usually wears her hair down. Will you make sure that you do it like this? Or so-and-so has this necklace that they love. Or so-and-so has this outfit and he never like leaves the house without things like this where they are thinking about it. The person ordering is thinking a ton about what they want to give. And then beyond that, then we are as well as the artist thinking about all these things. And so it's just so much thought goes into that gift. And I really believe that the receiver can feel that when it's.
I think so too. It's always a very impactful thing.
And you know what?
To be a part of that.
I have this discussion with a lot of my stitchy friends because they're always like, I didn't hear back from that customer and I worked so hard on that one and I wanted them to love it so bad and they didn't like say anything. And I'm like, you know what? It's because they're giving it as a gift and that person doesn't know you to say anything. And like to my brain, I'm like, they love it. They loved it. Like there's no way they didn't.
No news is good news. Most people only get on the internet to leave bad reviews of places they visited.
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's rare that you get somebody circling back to tell you good news. If I think, no news is good news because if it goes off without a hitch, then the person who bought it and the person they're giving it to, like you said, they had a positive experience. So they're off to the races, which is sometimes as the maker, like that is hard where you're like, hey, yeah, right. Like I'm part of this too, I think.
Especially for someone like me that does, I don't do Etsy. I don't love their fees. And so I just like my whole shop is word of mouth and on Instagram. Like I don't do any advertising besides that. And so I don't get reviews. Like they don't get an email that says, please review this shop, and so,
right.
And so, but I think as makers, we want feedback and it's so important to us to hear how it went over and
totally.
My friends kind of.
Well, and why not message them?
Exactly.
Like you could totally follow up and say, hey, customer, I was thinking of you. How did it go for the anniversary or how did the birthday? I think
that's what I started
and what a great look for you. You did? Oh, how's it been going?
So I decided that I would just always check in. First of all, I'd say like, please let me know it arrived. Because that's the other scary thing is when you send it and you're like, it says that it's delivered, but is it actually delivered?
Right. Or did somebody like steal it from the doorstep? You never know.
I always say, please ease my mind and let me know when you have it in your hand so that I can take a deep breath. Yeah. Because and I literally say like so much work goes into this and love that I need that little reassurance. And I am not afraid to say that to people.
Yeah.
And then
no, why not? I mean, it's a very human thing.
And then I always wait a couple weeks after when I know when the anniversary or the birthday is, and I always just say like, I hope it went over well and that they loved it. And I'll usually get back, oh my gosh, they loved it so much. I meant to get on here and say something. And it's always so, I mean, I feel kind of needy reaching out and doing that, but I also think that people like to say things back. People's lives get busy, and so give them that opportunity.
And it's usually like, I don't know, I think more times than not in this world, like so many problems would disappear if we just kind of assumed the best of everyone and gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. Like if you haven't heard from somebody, 9.999 times out of 10, it's because it went really well and they got really excited and moved right on and life happened and they got really busy. And because there wasn't a problem, because there wasn't something to specifically write about, it just gets off the radar. It doesn't mean they didn't like it and they're trying to give you the cold shoulder, trying to snub you. Like, it's just life. It's just, and I think you're right. I think people like to hear, like, especially when they've already interacted with you to such an extent, giving you the photos, discussing the needs, ordering ahead of time, making sure it's going to get to them on time. Like, they know there's a person on the other end of this. Like, I always find it a little weird if you order like technology or something and somebody's like, oh, hey, how's your whatever remote? Like, who are you? You're just a company. But when you order from a handmade or a handmaker, like, you've already been interacting with the human on the other end. I think it's only natural. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be needy. Like, hey, did you get my portrait? Right. But I hope it went well. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or even, I've been thinking of you. How did it go? Like, It's okay. It's okay to have a conversation with someone.
Or I've said before, so I have this sweet mom that always, every year, she's a foster mom. Oh my gosh. She is amazing. Wow. She found me in 2020 and she ordered a stitch of all the kids she had fostered that year. And so I stitched them all together. And then in 2021, she did the same. And like she had reunited those kids with her, like she had twins and their older brother, like 2 twin girls and their older brother for like a year and a half. And then she reunited them with their parents. And then the next set of kids she got was also female twins with their older brher.
Oh my gosh.
And so for some of the year she had both of those sets. So the next year I stitched all 6 of those kids. And anyway, and every year she keeps coming back and ordering. And now she and I, like, never met her. I don't even really know where she lives, but she and I are very close. And like we talk about
all about her family.
Yes, and I just think that like, it's funny how you create those relationships with your customers. And there is no way she would be offended by my being like, hey, how did it go reuniting those kids? I know that must have been heart-wrenching. Like, right. But like I even said that to her once. I was like, you are amazing. Like, I can't imagine caring she cared for these twins since they were infants until they were 18 months old and then reunited them with their mom. And I said, like, you are just an amazing person for doing that. And she wrote back and she said, well, that's the goal. Like, all we want is for them to be able to be with their moms and their dads if that's what's going to happen, And I was like, gosh, your heart is so huge. I can't even imagine. Anyway, so like,
and how cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. And all this to say is that like, we create like what you said, we create relationships with our customers. So it's okay to reach back out and be like, I was thinking about you. I hope it went well. Or, like, I've been thinking about your friend that lost their dog. I hope that they received the gift well and it brought them peace or something like that.
Totally.
And like you said, like Amazon will send you a message and be like, how did you like that remote? And we don't get offended. So our customers aren't going to get offended by us.
No, not at all. I love, so what I'm also hearing in all of this, I'm going to take just like a slightly different trail here in our forest of conversation.
I know, we're going on and on. I'm sorry. I'm long-winded.
No. I love it because this is what makes it matter. This is why it's important. I'm curious. It sounds like you've developed really good systems and kind of, for lack of a better word, I know it's kind of a buzzword these days, but like really good boundaries around your doing this as a business. Like you need certain things from people. You have a lead time in place because you know what your constraints are in your own life as a mom and wife and family, for anybody, because there's always people who start doing this and they love it and they're like, ooh, I'm thinking maybe I'll sell them too. And there's always a ton of questions of like getting going, selling portraits. You've been doing it for some years now. What would you say, are kind of things to keep in mind or any advice you would have for anybody who's thinking about selling portraits? And what comes to mind for you as like lessons learned that you would share or go back and tell yourself a few years ago when you were getting started?
Well, first of all, if I could go back and tell myself, I would always say collect some money, at least some, before you work on a pattern. I used to
like a deposit.
Yeah, I used to get all the pictures, draw up the pattern. Once they approved the pattern, I would have them pay half. And then once it was delivered, I'd have them pay the second half. And that worked for me for a while because people felt a personal relationship with me that they like obviously aren't going to not pay me, right? But then I had one lady who had all these edits and all these changes to the pattern, and I probably spent 3 hours on creating this pattern for her.
Oof.
I mean, normally I spend maybe an hour on them, but like she had so many changes and so many edits. And then she just...
That's always a red flag to me.
And then she just...
people aren't ever content. It's like they don't get it.
Like, this is my art too, you know?
Yeah, so right.
She ghosted me after she said she loved the final edit. Then I was like, great, then you can, you know, Venmo me half and then we'll go forward. And she just... And I wrote her a few more messages and they said read, but she never like...
I wonder if she took it and stitched it herself.
I kind of think maybe that happened, or she got someone else to do it cheaper. You know, I never send it with the blocks. Like I never send the pattern. Like I use Sketch online, and I always remove the line. I always remove the line, so it's just the picture. But if you're a stitcher, you can still copy that.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
But who knows?
Yeah, and it's. And again, too, like a lot of times people who've not sold their own wares or worked for themselves, like, I don't know, like you're an actor, you're a performer. People who know what it is to kind of be freelance or gig, I think have a little bit of an easier time. But especially when it's something you make that has like your stamp on it, it's so easy to feel sheepish about it. And kind of in a similar way, Amazon sends a review email. Why not send a follow-up to a customer? Like if you are selling something, it's okay to ask for payment.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's expected. And if somebody wants to buy something from you, they're going to expect that at a certain point. So just own, even if you yourself have imposter syndrome, fine, valid, know that feeling. But I love this advice of just like secure the transaction a little bit, because just lean into what it is, which is a transaction at its very basis form, and that's okay. And then you can let your imposter syndrome run.
Well, and that's why I decided, because I still feel, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, but I still feel a little reluctant to ask for full payment up front. And I think the way that I feel about that is just that, like, I want to make this decision easier for people. It's
totally.
It's a lot
I think
of
that's
money.
A really good tactic.
It's a lot of money to spend on a 6-inch anything, right? Yep. And so, you know, especially with what those of us that have been doing this for long enough should be charging. You know, it's a fair amount of money. If someone's spending $200 on a 6-inch thing, they're gonna. It's hard to do that before you even know what it's gonna look like or anything.
Totally.
And so I always say, you know, like, throw me a $50 deposit to save your place in line is what I always say. Is that as soon as your deposit is paid, that's where you are in my line, and that's when your name comes up. I start to stitch your thing.
Brilliant.
And then they're locked in. They didn't have to make this $200 decision. They could make a $50 decision, and then
it's only $150.
Yes, exactly. And actually,
it's not full 200.
Yeah, sometimes I'll say half, pay half now, you know, depending on how big their thing is, and that helps a lot. And then it's like, okay, and then they've already paid the $50 to make your pattern, so they're never going to ghost you because they don't want to lose that $50. You know, and so I learned
that's a really smart way of doing it. Makes it easier for everybody. Everybody feels a little more secure. Yeah. It's like you ease into it all together. Yeah. So do you have any other tips, tricks, advice for people who want to sell? Have you run into obstacles you didn't anticipate, or have you figured out processes that, like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't do it any other way now?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is I under-promise on timeline. I always say 12 to 15 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks, you know, so they're thinking 3 to 4 months. And then if I send it in 2, they're super happy. I'm really big about that.
Under promise, over deliver.
Yes, that's the word. That's the phrase.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's which, I mean, it sounds like it's just a very genuine thing. You don't want to set people's expectations too high. Mm-hmm. If something happens for you, oh, I can get it to you in 3 days. Well, what if your kid gets sick, or what? You know, if you just give them a big window, or a wide, you know, expectation, and then anything that's a laser sharp focus after that is going to be
well,
really
and I also I I charge more if people want it rushed. I have people that are like, I
Great.
need it in 4 weeks.
Should.
So my rule is if they need it between 6 and 8 weeks, I charge an extra 20%. If they need it between 4 and 6 weeks, I charge an extra 35%. And if they need it within like, no, wait, and then it's, no, 30%. And then if they need it between 2 and 4 weeks, I charge an extra 35. And then if they need it within 2 weeks, I'm like, that's a 50% upcharge. Plus,
Good.
you know,
because the time it takes, you have to upend your life
I
to
have
accommodate
to stay up till 3 or 4 a.m. and be tired all day.
Which is maybe worth an extra 50%,
totally.
you know, but it's not worth nothing.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I do is, you know, I talk a lot again with my stitching friends, like they'll get an order and it'll be something they're just so passionless about. Like they don't care, like they don't want to stitch this, or somebody's like asked for some like crazy thing and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to tell them no. And I'll say, that's totally fine. Set those boundaries. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But for me, I always do it, but I charge the price that would be worth it for me to do it. I'll be like, you know what? I'll do this project I'm not passionate about, but it's going to be, you know, $500. And if the person still wants it, more power to them. They'll pay it.
Everybody wins.
You want it. Yeah. Like, yeah. So my brother is a director.
Some good audiobook time.
Yeah, exactly. My brother's a director for Hallmark. My brother and my sister-in-law, they're a married couple and they direct a bunch of Hallmark movies. And
fun.
2 different times my brother has hired me. He hasn't hired me. He's told like the art department to hire me, which is like props. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The thing is literally right outside the window, like the lawnmower guy. I'm gonna wait till he walks a little bit further. Anyway,
sure.
The art department has contacted me and said we need a stitch in our movie. Like they just did one. I just finished a piece for a Christmas movie that's coming out next year, and this one's actually a family portrait. The last one I did was like an embroidery piece, but this time it's actually like a stitched family portrait. My brother called me on December 26th and said, I need a stitch in Serbia by January 7th. And I was like, okay, you couldn't give me a little more time than this? And he's like, I'm really sorry, but we moved some things around with the script, and I thought this stitch would be the perfect gift. They were planning on giving a different gift in the movie, but I thought a stitch would be better. So he's like, I need it. But in Serbia, like you can't even, if I sent it right that minute, it wouldn't have gotten to Serbia in time. So I needed to get it to Salt Lake City to someone that was flying to Serbia. And I had to get it to Salt Lake City by January 1st. And they didn't give me the pictures or anything until the 28th. And also it's my anniversary. It's New Year's, it's my daughter's birthday. Like I had all these things happening. And so he got me all the pictures by the 28th. And here's the deal. This was crazy, Lizzie. I didn't even have like a picture of the characters in the movie. They sent me individual headshots of the actors. And then they sent me screenshots of the lookbook for their costumes. So like, this is what this character would wear. This is what this whole...
So you just have like a bunch of options.
Yeah, exactly. So here's me. It's my anniversary, December 28th. And I'm like, oh crap. So I call my friend Heather, Munn's maid. You know Munn's maid? I call Heather Munns, and I was like, Heather, I need you to do something for me. And I paid her to make me the pattern and to like make all the costume decisions and everything. This is where this goes back to your question, like, what would you suggest? And I would suggest getting a community and reaching out for help. So I called her. She had time that day. I did not. I was literally out with my husband for our anniversary, and I needed to start stitching the next day. As you should be. Yeah. And she spent the whole day putting all those costumes together. She, made the pattern for me. I gave her a few tweaks, like, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. She changed them for me. I mean, I paid her very well because Hallmark paid me very well. Anyway, and so then everybody wins. Yeah, then I sent it over to the art department. They loved it, and then the next day I could just start stitching. So to those of you that are starting out, I would say 100% reach out to people on Instagram, and don't do it selfishly. Make sure that you are complimenting and being kind and like asking smaller questions and just kind of like getting into the community in more of a, what's the word, organic way, rather than like, I really like that pattern. Can I use it? I'm stealing it. Like, to somebody that you don't really know, you know, like kind of make sure that you're building relationships before you just like, anyway. And then you can, and then you
what's
can,
that whole, you get what you give kind of a vibe. And I mean, even just golden rule, treat others how you would want to be treated, but you know, make sure you're contributing to what you're receiving, and you know, that if something in it for everybody.
If you want followers and you want people commenting on your stuff, make sure you go out and you go comment and compliment and tell people that they're amazing and that their stuff is awesome and that you like it, and that, you know, so that you're building this community rather than just taking. And then once you have these women and sometimes men, I think that men that stitch are so cool. But anyway, like you have this community that you've built, then you can rely on them for things. I've had Heather make house, like she does a lot of houses now, and I had her make house patterns for me when I've been in a hurry. She made my brother's house pattern when I wanted to do it for Christmas, and I was like running around with my chicken. She does this job full time, where I have to fit it in at nap time and late at night. She has all her kids in school now, so she's able to really do it all the time. So I feel like I can rely on her.
Well, and it helps you, as you outsource, it helps you tackle some of those things that you otherwise either couldn't or wouldn't want to. Like something that might be passionless for you might not be for someone else. So if you have them develop the pattern, you do the stitching, everybody wins, everybody gets a piece of the pie. That's a really great way to tackle it, you know? And that's too, you could tap it in the Stitch People community, obviously, if you have something you have a question about and say, hey, you know, my friend wants me to stitch a thing. I don't have this time. Does anybody else want to do it? You know, you could always throw things out, and that's a really good way to build rapport with people. And if you're helping to kind of share and feed work and, you know, direct things, that's really good advice.
And then also
power and numbers,
like being like, crap, what color is this suit? Is this black or navy blue? And having, you know, besides, we can always put that kind of thing on the Stitch People Facebook page, but it's also nice if you've built a community where you can text one person. Exactly. Because that just
get a second opinion
that my husband just can't. Like one time I showed my husband a stitch that I did of a piano. He's like, what is that? I'm like, it's clearly a piano. Like, and he's like, oh, I can't really tell. And then I showed all my stitchy friends, and actually I posted it on the Facebook page, and everyone's like, your husband's crazy. That's a piano.
Well, and especially to the people who requested a piano, that's exactly what they're going to see.
Exactly. So anyway.
Oh, that is good. Good thoughts, good info. I love that. Tell us, before we get too far past it, what is your shop? Or I guess you're not on Etsy. What's your Instagram where people can find you and follow you?
It is Cross My Heart, but my is spelled M-A-E. So it's CROSSMAEHEART. And then, of course,
Cross My Heart.
Yeah, then, of course, there's a little underscore at the end, which I don't know why that happened, but
silly Instagram. Okay, we'll definitely link that in the show notes and on the blog post and stuff. Okay. But before we wrap up, I'd love to just rapid fire some favorite things, because that's always fun.
Favorite thing.
Tell us, do you have a favorite treat?
Oh my gosh, hot tamales.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. OG recipe or the updated spicier recipe?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Are they updated and spicier? I must just like whatever there is.
Updated. I think it was like 10 years ago, but I definitely remember loving hot tamales as a kid, and then they changed the recipe, and I felt so betrayed. And they changed the Butterfinger recipe too.
Did they?
Which is really too bad. Oh yeah, Butterfingers used to be amazing, and now it's like,
well, that's how I feel about goldfish. Goldfish used to be good, and now they're like all healthy. I'm like, goldfish,
I would say not the favorite snack. What is your favorite snack? Your favorite like crackery snack chips?
They have these things here in Hawaii called turtle chips. They're only good. The churro flavor is the only good one, but they're insane. And they're like these little, I don't know, quarter-sized fluffs of air that taste like chocolate churro. They're so good.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked. Do you have a favorite color generally?
Blue. I'm always a blue girl. Yeah.
And do you have a favorite season? I mean, now you're in Hawaii. I guess you're just in Hawaii season.
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite season of the year elsewhere?
I love summer. Like
Oh, well, then you're in the perfect place.
Yeah, I know. My husband and I both hate snow. So
Summer
we're
weather.
like, we love it here. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And circling back to the beginning, you sort of mentioned the bucket list. You're living in Hawaii. You're doing the bucket list. What else is on your bucket list? What other fun things are you wanting to do in your lifetime?
So have you ever seen those Instagram videos of like those people that get, maybe you don't because, because I like it. So I see it more often, but like where people are like strapped to like a giant swing and they just swing out over like a huge canyon or something like that.
I have seen those videos. Yeah,
I want to do that sometime. I've already been skydiving. I've done like the big, I haven't bungee jumped, but I don't know if I want to do that to like my body at this age. I'm almost 40 here. So like my body is not going to handle bungee jumping anymore. But
the swing's a gentler experience.
Yeah, my head isn't going to get like pulled off of my body if I swing. But I want to do that, just like swing out over this giant canyon. I've always wanted to do that.
Fun. Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. And what's your favorite? You've traveled a lot with in your first marriage, going all to the regional theaters. Now you're living in Hawaii. What's your favorite place that you visited?
Oh my gosh, Japan by far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Japan, what did you love about it? That was like a visceral response.
Oh yeah. So Japan is literally the best place in the world. People thank you when they do something for you. Like they're holding the door open and they're like, thank you to you. Like, wait a minute. People are so kind there. People are so considerate of other people there. It was, my husband and I did a 10-day trip there. And if there's anything to say how amazing that trip was, I was literally having a miscarriage the entire trip.
Oh my goodness.
And it was still the best trip of my life. Like it was, I mean, yeah, like if
that's high praise.
Yeah, exactly. If that goes to show how amazing that trip was, it could have, I mean, it was obviously it was hard, like emotionally, but I had a few at the time. I had 3 in a row when I was in between my second and my third babies. And so it was the second of 3 miscarriages. So I kind of knew the drill, but it was such an amazing trip that like, even that it overshadowed the horror of that. Right. And so it like the food is amazing. And I'm not even like, I mean, I'm married to a Japanese guy, but my taste is not Japanese food, but they just have so much like different types of food there. I mean, kind of like any big city. But it's just a magical place.
There's like, it's huge endorsement.
Yeah. So one little example. I know we got to wrap this up, but one little example.
I'm having a good time.
There's like this street celebrating going on. Japan had won like the soccer game or something like that, and all these college students are in the streets like celebrating and yelling, and it's blocking traffic, and it's this crazy thing. And this guy comes over this loudspeaker and is like da 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 da, says something like in Japanese, and all of a sudden all these people start moving and like going to different places. And I was like, whoa, what did he just say? And Jason said, he like did the direct translation for me. He's like, he basically just said, I know you're all very excited, but please remember the rules and your manners. And like everybody just goes like a move to like let the traffic through. I was like, please remember your rules and your manners. And everyone's like, I'm going to remember my manners and make sure this car can get through. Like, it's just so...
Good point, announcer, man.
Exactly. Like, whereas anywhere here, like, nobody would even hear that. We're all just so focused on ourselves. But the way I felt in Japan is everybody was looking out for other people. They were, they wear masks because when they're sick, because they don't want anybody else to get, and they've been doing that for years. They just like open the door for you. They don't talk loudly on their cell phone when you're in a train and everybody's in close quarters. They're just so considerate of everyone that it just felt really like nice to be there in that country. So I like Japan, and I of course am biased because my kids are half Japanese and my husband's Japanese, but I want to go back.
But what you experience is what you experience.
Yeah.
Announcer man had nothing to do with those babies.
That's true.
He's just reminding people of their manners.
That's true.
I love that. Oh, well, I think that's a really happy note to go out on. Do you have any final things that you want to share or say to new stitchers, old stitchers, anyone in the community?
Oh, just, make time for it. Make time for yourself.
Yeah.
If it's something that brings you joy, like it doesn't like even 20 minutes a day, like make time to do it. It's gonna like relax you, bring you joy, ease your anxiety. There's just so many benefits from doing an activity that you love and that you're talented at.
Totally. Like you said, it was part of your healing journey.
Yeah.
And part of, and the gifts that you've been able to give have been helpful in helping others heal in their journey too. So
yeah. One thing really fast, I learned recently the difference between a talent and a skill. And a skill is something that you can be really good at. And people can learn skills. And people can be skilled at their skills and not talented at their skills. And a talent is something that excites you and brings you energy and like brings exuberance into your life. And so if stitching is something that brings you energy and like fills you up, that's a talent, even if you're not great at it yet. Even if you're still beginning, even if it's just like, oh, you're still trying to get your stitches to lay flat and you're working on like realistic hair and it's just not working. Like if it brings you joy, then it's a talent and you can build your skills to make you more skilled at your talent. But you are talented at it if it brings you energy and joy. So keep doing it if that's the case.
Wise words. I love that. I love that so much. Courtney, thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for chatting. It's been a pleasure. And I'm sure everybody else had a great time hearing from you and all of your words of wisdom and advice. And anyway,
thanks,
so
Lizzie.
good to see you.
You're the best. So wonderful chatting with you. I really could keep talking for hours. So.
I know. I'm like, you got another hour?
I know, for real.
That is a wrap on my conversation with Courtney. Thank you so much for listening. I just feel like I could talk to her forever. In fact, after we stopped recording, we talked for like another 45 minutes. And I kept thinking, oh, we should just hit record again and have another podcast episode. I don't know. It's just so fun to catch up. I love the through line of giving and thoughtfulness in her portraits and in all of the great stories she shared. And I'm so glad you got to hear them too and be a part of it. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, we could really use a like, a subscribe, a review of our podcast if you're enjoying it. If you have feedback for us, you can give that to us at stitchpeople.com/podcast. We always want to hear from you and improve where we can. Thank you so much for being a member of the Stitch People community and for supporting each other and for helping to make Stitch People one of the happiest things to do on the internet and all around. It's just so great to be a part of something so wonderful. So thank you so much. And thank you to the wonderful Stitch People team making the magic happen, to our music by Jonathan Boyle, and to our sound engineer, Brandon Yost. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and happy stitching. Bye for now. Hey Stitch People, as a way to say thank you for listening to this podcast, we have made a special discount just for you. If you go to stitchpeople.com and order anything, use the code podcast10 at checkout. That's PODCAST10 at checkout to get 10% off your order as a way to say thanks. We sure appreciate you. Thanks for listening. The Stitch People podcast is a production of Meetcute LLC and Stitch People. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved.